What we're going to do here today is we're going to try to help you guys get from where you are to where you want to be. Cynthia, the question I have, question number one here for you is, do you want to live in a box? Now, I know that question is somewhat offensive and probably not a good question, but the idea is, do you want to live inside an income box? So I want you to think about it real quick, and don't look at the person next to you. This is an interactive one-on-one, we're supposed to connect here individually type of seminar, okay? So don't cheat, don't look at the person next to you. But I want you to write down next to the box how much money you make per year. Don't look at the person next to you. Come on, quit looking. Okay? But I want you to think, because this is your box. This is your geography. This determines the width of your footprint on the planet. Okay? Because think about it just real quick here. The reason why we work is so that we can buy time. I'll give you an example, okay? It's great. But relationships, if you had all the money in the world, you didn't have to go do something you didn't want to do, who would you spend time with? Okay, so if you guys can just write down those names. So if you had all the time and all the money you wanted, who would you spend time with? Second question here for me. As far as travel, kind of a less deep subject, but if you had all the money available, where would you travel to? If you had all the money you wanted, who would you give money to? You know, who would you help out? So now the next question is, how much does that cost? So I want you just to write down next to point F, what does that cost? Because we have your income over here, but what does it cost to do these things? Because the goal of tonight is to generate enough revenue to do all those things. Does that make sense? So the goal of tonight, whatever industry you're in, whatever you do, is to make enough money to do those things. Because it's really not that hard. There's just a few subtle changes we have to do, and then we're on to it. Okay, so if you have all the money in the world, what would you want to do? What is a problem that you could solve? Could someone here who's a small business owner or who wants to be, tell me what problem you solve? Like, what is the service you render, or the product you render, or that you want to render? Somebody? Bueller? Bueller? Bueller. Yes, sir. What is the problem that you solve?
Communication problems.
Communication problems. Communication. Okay. So you solve communication specifically, I think we talked about, from the person filing an insurance claim and the insurance company. Is that right? Anybody else here solve a problem you want to describe? What does your company do? What do you do? Well, I talked to a guy who's an engineer from Texas. You, sir, what problem do you solve? What do you do? If you look at the bottom right of this, I'll tell you what problem. I took algebra 3 times on my description of who am I, right here. I took algebra 3 times. You help people like me. You know what I mean? So you solve math problems, right? I mean, you do a lot of things in engineering. Okay. What problems do you solve? Anybody else here solve a problem? Anybody else solve a problem? Somebody? Yes, you in the back.
I find money for projects for a nonprofit organization.
Find money for projects for nonprofits, and that's a big deal for an organization that needs money. I mean, you are their lifeline, right? Okay, anybody else here have a problem you solve? Think about something this month that just irritated you, some problem that you had happen. I'll give you an example. Anybody here know about Maurice Canbar? Anybody know about that guy? And what he did is he was at a traffic light one day, and he was thinking to himself, I was so hammered last night and my head hurt. Why does that happen? Now, mind you, he's like 65 at the time. Why does my head hurt, you know? So he talks to the secretary, and she's like, it's because you drink like a fish, you know what I mean? You were drunk, you know? And he says, okay, well, yeah, but why does that happen? She said, well, I just think it's because you drink too much, you know? Just let it go. So he just obsesses on it. Well, he starts to think, I bet you there's somebody who knows why it causes a headache. So he starts researching on the Google, starts researching, finds a university where apparently there's college professors that study alcohol for a full-time living. And he sits down with these guys and says, dudes, philosophers, geniuses, guys, what causes a headache? And they say, oh, it's these certain parts of the alcohol. Unless you triple distill something and you do this and that, it will cause a headache. And he's like, can't we just triple distill it? And so the geniuses say, well, yeah, you could, but it'd be a lot more money. So he says, well, let's do that. So they do it. He patents the idea. He ends up branding Sky Vodka, and he sells it for $600 million to solve a problem. And you go, well, that's an anomaly. That's not a realistic example. But that's how you do it. You don't have to go to like any certification program to find a problem and solve it. So I'm just give you a second, a little kumbaya time. Write down some problems that you could solve. Maybe something that just pisses you off every day that you have to solve. You know, why do I always step on my kids' cars? Why does it hurt my foot? I don't know. What's the problem you could solve, though? What is it? So what's the problem? Somebody think of a problem. Think of a problem. We have a lady back here. I'm going to pick on you because you're the nurse of the city of Tulsa, and you are a big deal, and therefore you are awesome. What is your name again?
Jamisha.
Jamisha, and you are the city nurse for the city of Tulsa?
Yes.
People see you when they have tummy aches and such?
Give her a job.
Tell them about your consulting career. You're consulting. What are you doing now?
Helping companies accomplish what I do for the city. If you have CDL drivers, you drug test them, I can help them start a drug testing program.
Okay. So you're teaming up with attorneys now who need, is that what you're saying? You're teaming up?
That's another piece of it.
About like how smart we are, it's the problem we solve. Does that make sense? You guys feel me? Like a petting zoo? Okay, starting to get the theme. Okay, good. So we're going to move on to marketing, assuming you have a problem. If you don't have a problem to solve, I encourage you to just go talk to your friends after we're done. Someone's going to bitch about something, write it down and solve it. Marketing. Who are your likely customers? Who would you like to serve, men or women? Okay, if you guys can just circle one, men or women. Just as a general rule, 80% of purchases in the U.S., between 70 and 80% are made by women. Therefore, I would recommend you sell to women. How many dudes here would not buy anything if it wasn't for your lady friend or some lady frustrating you? Any dudes here? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I wouldn't buy anything for years, bro. I just wouldn't buy anything for years. Have a card table, sit there, feel content. Okay, awesome. So where do your likely customers live? Next thing is, how much money do your likely customers make? You got to kind of profile a little bit, because you're going to market if you're going to market to people, you have to know who your likely customers are, who you're going to market to. You know? So like for DJ Connection, we do about 4,000 weddings a year now, but the crazy deal about it is that most people who book a wedding usually have a venue, right? They usually have a place to have it. And so we only market to people that have venues, and so we spend most of our marketing to venues. Does that make sense? So like the Mayo Hotel books us more weddings than if we mailed to like a David's Bridal list. Does that make sense? I'm clarifying? So marketing to your likely buyers, right? I get booked for a lot of speaking events, and I don't like going anywhere other than Vegas, Arizona, Orlando, all right, Miami. That's about it. So I just market to event planners who are in those areas. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. Next thing is here. What publications do your likely customers read? And if you go to page 2, I'm going to show you an example. Go to page 2. For Justin's business with the elephant in the room, we found that dudes who are willing to pay $50 for a straight razor shave read Tulsa Business Journal, they go to the Summit Club, and so that's where we focused our marketing. So 9 weeks, he's been in 7 publications. What shows do your likely customers watch? And these are all things you can do at home, okay? What products or services do your customers buy? What is your number 1 competitor in your marketplace? And what is your purple cow? Anybody know what a purple cow is? Anybody? Anybody hear about the news story where the pilot freaked out recently? He freaked out, he wigged out, he opens up the cockpit, he starts screaming at people, it's the end of the world. You hear about this guy? That guy was flying to a conference, the ISTA ID badge conference that I was speaking at, and that guy was like the most popular guy in Vegas. Right? Because everyone knew about it and everyone talked about it because this JetBlue pilot freaked out. Why did we talk about it? Did anybody here talk about that story with a friend or hear about it? Who here heard about it? Okay, did anybody pay you to talk about it? I mean, did you pass it on to somebody else? Did you at least share it to one friend? No, it's a purple cow, it's weird. So people talk about it, right? So it's that guy, I'm not going to do this, but hypothetically, if I wanted to be like the Tide Pros guy that was naked, everyone would talk about it for a while. Like, hey, remember that Tide Pros guy that was naked? Yeah, he's in jail now, but I remember him. Right? So you think about it though. You say, well, if that happened, I'll remember it, right? So what if I took a business plan and I made it memorable that didn't involve nudity? We'll toss that out. But if you painted a cow purple, like if you're a farmer and you just painted a cow purple, you know what I mean? People would talk about your farm just because it's the one with the purple cow. You see that thing? It's crazy. Right? So, I mean, it's just something that's memorable. Does that make sense to you? So what's your purple cow? What's your differentiator? And if you want a recommended reading from people who are smarter than me, the book Purple Cow right here, right underneath People Who Are Marketing by Seth Godin is an awesome book for you to read. It's small. It's the kind of book that I can read. Small book. The book I can read, okay? How many people here feel like that sales is really hard for you? That's like not your thing. Anybody here feel like sales is not your thing? Okay, 1, 2, 3. It's okay. Anybody here awesome at sales? You love sales? Just call me and I'll book your face. I'll book your face. Just close the deal. I'll get your credit card. Okay. All right. So who feels good about sales? Some of you guys just are here, I guess, right? Some of you have been drinking a lot. Okay. Awesome. Well, sales. The thing is, if you don't know what to do when the phone rings, there's a book called Soft Selling in a Hard World. And I want you guys to read this book, okay? So the thing is, with sales, it's finding out what people want and what they don't want. Does that make sense? So if I'm going to sell something, I'm going to sit down and talk to you about what you want and what you don't want. And then I'm going to tell you what we do and back it by a fact, okay? And these are great exercises for you. Also on sales, you get a point G, you want to have a dream 100 clients. So a lot of people have been like, dude, how have you met George Foreman? Or how did you work with Hobby Lobby? Or how did you meet Quick Trip? Well, at some point, you put them on the list, right? And you just dial and smile. You call them all till they cry, buy, or die. Right, that's my system. Call them all, dial and smile till they cry, buy, or die. But I don't think Oprah wakes up and says, holy crap, Evan Tipton, I want to pay him. Wow. Clay Clark, I feel like I owe him money. I love that. You know, think about the people you want to reach. Because isn't it about who you know to get where you want to go? Isn't it ultimately? Think about the people you want to know and just decide to cold call them until they cry, buy, or die. And just make sure you dial and smile. You can't sound pissed. You can't sound like you called them 6 times. Now, the higher up the food chain, is it harder to get a hold of them? Is it true? Anybody here cold call a lot for a living? Are there some tricks? Are there some Jedi tricks? Let's get real for a second. How many of you people, when I cold call you, don't answer if you don't know the number? Come on. I get past that hurdle, but this is a hurdle, right? So, phone's vibrating. My wife's like, do you need to get that? No, I don't know who this is. My phone's ringing, right? Look at it. Third time. What happens the third time the phone rings? It's stopped, it's third time, it's the same number. What do you guys do eventually? What the hell? Hello? That's your shot right there. So in my office, you have to call the rule of thirds. You call people 3 times and hang up 3 times until you get them on the phone. Now, the bride who hates you, I don't care because I wouldn't book her anyway. Don't call me again. Well, I wasn't going to call you again because you wouldn't answer the phone. It's fine. We're in the same spot. Right? Does that make sense now? Dial and smile. Other thing is when you call them, have something to say. Don't be like, well, you know, I was calling you about some Oprah, about some of there's some. Suppose you and me, maybe, you know, you can't do that. You gotta have like a discernible thought, right? I mean, right? That makes sense? Okay, have a plan, okay? And then the thing is, third thing is make sure when you cold call people, know that they don't give a crap about you or me. What they care about is what problem that you can solve for them. So when Sarah Blakely called, she said, hey, I've got a product that can revolutionize the way you sell stuff and can make Neiman Marcus millions. Okay, you see what I'm saying? But if you're like, I've got a product that can make me millions, if you'll talk about me, awesome for me, because I made this list of goals, and I can achieve them if you call me. No one's going to call you, right? Okay, so think about it. Think about the cold call. This book is awesome for you. Point number 3, customer service experience. How will you turn routine transactions into memorable, enjoyable experiences? How many of you ladies or guys go to Starbucks occasionally and not really sure what you're going to buy, but you're there for a meeting, and therefore you just buy something? You know what I mean? I do it all the time. I meet somebody there and I'm like, courtesy purchase, freaking barista. Right, you do that? You buy something, you're not really getting a muffin, you're like, that's 7,000 calories I just ate. I guess my diet's screwed. You're like, I'm just going to buy something, right? And then you sit there and kind of nibble at it because you're what I mean? You know, but people go there because it's the third place. Anybody read his book? It's not home, it's not work, it's the third place. Make your business the third place or make your presentation the third place. Make it so that I can't stop wanting to hang out with you because you're so either funny, you're energetic, you're serious, you're just, I don't know, something. Make me, you know, be compelling or I want to be by you. Does that make sense? I had an insurance guy who hired me to do consulting with him and he smells like fish. Like, really, literally. Like Dr. Atkins, like he's cooking fish and chicken all the time. I'm like, Brody, every time I'm with you, I smell this fish. He's like, yeah, I kind of do. You know, fish, like fish. You start realizing, like, he smells like fish, you know, he looks like he's got the 3rd grade boy haircut thing, you know, going on. He's just got a lot of problems, you know what I mean? But no one had talked to him. I'm a consultant, so my job is to yell at him professionally. You know what I mean? So I'm like, Broseph, let's talk about your, you know, he's meeting people at his office, and his office has a cat, and the cat pees. So you go there and you're, fish and cat pee, perfect. How many of you met somebody at their home business and it smelled like cat pee or some kind of smell that wasn't good? Anybody done that? You ever met somebody, you know what I mean? You ever met somebody who decided not to buy as soon as you met them just because of something weird? So the customer service, let's think about it. And those of you who work for somebody else and you want to go up the corporate ladder, just make sure that you project the job you want, not the job you have. Whoa! Right? The job you want, not the job you have. So if you're at a job and you're like, someday I want to be the CEO, look how he dresses and start dressing like him. Is that fair? No. But how many of you have been to the mall and you prejudge somebody? Ladies especially. Come on, ladies. I see you do all the time. We go to the mall. Dude's got a tattoo on his neck. Probably a good guy. Probably has some personal troubles. And I turned his life around. He's awesome. Okay? So he's walking at the mall, and there's ladies like, you know, you don't even talk to him. He's got the tattoo on the neck, you know what I mean? I mean, if he wanted to just change his commercial, his personal commercial, and just change the way he looked, would you maybe be more inclined to talk to him? Right? How many of you are missing out on promotion because of the way we dress, or missing out on a big deal because, does that make sense? So just be thinking about, dress for the role you want, not the role you have. And for the record, my buddy who's into the pop music, Ryan, if you look him up on Google, he wears like weird leather straps on his wrist all the time. We mess with him at ORU. We're like, dude, why are you rocking a considerable amount of leather straps and a shirt that definitely my 4th grade friend wore? Why are you wearing that? You know, like a Star Wars shirt, you know, where you definitely see a male nipple, you know, tight shirt. And he's like, oh man, that's just what, you know, he's a musician, so you got to dress the part. You know what I mean? If you dress like you're an executive, but you're a musician, you kind of freak people out with it. So dress the role for the role you want to have. Does that make sense? Okay, awesome. So moving along here. What will you offer beyond your product and service point B? What's the addictive quality? Anybody here have a place you go back to other than Starbucks just because it's a fun experience? Something? What do you go back to? Certain bars. Certain bars. How about certain cities? Like Austin, isn't there kind of a seductive something? You go to the weird place, or Charleston. Any cities you go to where it's just kind of a fun area, there's an aura. Anybody here felt that aura, that entertainment, that dining, that retail, that something, that, I don't know what it is, you know what I mean? There's a coffee shop, and I'm not going to mention the name of it, but everything I've ever ordered there sucks, but I go back. I can't figure it out. You know what I mean? There's a place I went for breakfast the other day where the images, I'm not going to talk about it, the name of it, but you know what I'm talking about. It's got carpet from like 84, images from like 91, wallpaper from 94, a waitress who's mean, and we all go back. Yeah. You know what I mean? Why? We don't know. We just do. Purple cow. It's something. Think about the experience. What's the experience? What's the aroma, the aura, the addictive quality of you and your personality? Point number 4. Product, service, wow. How will you systematically exceed your customers' expectations every time? Let's talk about exceed. Exceed meaning to what? Anybody? To go above and beyond? Okay. Think of a service that went above and beyond recently. Anybody think of a service that went above and beyond? Anybody think of one? Anybody want to volunteer? Yes, ma'am.
I had an experience where I was searching for something at a store, and they only had a small selection, and the lady used to work at a competitor, and she went on the phone and called that store to see if they had what I was looking for, even though it took away sales from her business.
Anybody else have an experience like that? Like where you have that kind of, do you have it's something of a great, you know, great experience there. Like you're going, this lady's great. Did she earn some loyalty points from you?
I would go back because she did that, yeah.
Yeah. How many people buy stuff from someone where it doesn't make any sense? Maybe you bought insurance from a dude who's married to someone you know, or a lady married to someone. You buy insurance and the rate is clearly higher than somebody else, but you just like him, right? It's that relationship thing, right? You know what I mean? So just go over and above it. So if you work in the corporate structure, exceed the expectations, right? Or if you have a customer, just try to wow them. And you're asking, well, what specifically do I do? Whatever it takes to wow. Does that make sense? Anybody been on a Southwest Airlines flight where you had a flight attendant that was hilarious, or that rapped or sang a song? Was it awesome? We went recently coming back from Vegas, and the lady's like, guys, our flight's running a little bit late, and we don't want anyone to ever have a bad memory, so we're going to serve free alcohol until you forget. And everyone's like, yeah, you know. So we get back to Tulsa at like midnight, and we're just so hammered, we're all calling taxis and stuff, you know. But we remember it as a great thing. Does that make sense to you guys? It's just whatever it takes to go over and above. How are you deliver your product or service in a way that your customer loves? How do you create a cult-like following? Tiffany boxes? Apple boxes. How many of you saved an Apple box to your computer? Or a Tiffany box to jewelry? Anybody here saving that stuff? What are we doing? I got my freaking MacBook like cases and like iPod and my iPhone. Why am I saving it? I'm so dumb. I wrote this. I'm still saving this stuff. What am I going to do? I just feel guilty. Like it's so awesome. I want to keep it. The Tiffany box, like, what are we saving it for? I don't know, but it's a cult-like following. Does that make sense? It's like created that. It's something. So how are we packaging our stuff? How are we packaging our stuff? And if you're in the corporate structure, how are you packaging yourself so that you have that a certain addictive quality? It's stuff. Quality control. Quality control. What mechanisms will you put in place to allow your employees to feel the gain of outstanding work and the pain of poor performance? Poor performance. How many people here work with somebody who's an ignoramus? I won't tell you. You work with somebody who's an ignoramus, you know they're dumb. You know that they're smart, but they're being dumb on purpose. You know it. You see him at coffee, you want to fight him, but you don't because he's the boss's son. You know what I'm talking about, right? That guy, that lady, right? Well, how many of you work at a place where you get paid more if you do a good job and you get paid less if you stink? Anybody work at a place like that? Anybody? You do? Okay. Can you talk to me, Kelly, how that works maybe? What do you do?
I mean, as far as like a raise,
What kind of industry are you in, by the way?
I work in these treatment centers.
Okay, so if I'm the ignoramus, because that's probably true, right? I'm the bad employee, and you're the good employee. What's the difference? What happens?
Well, you get the performance evaluation and you're paid for performance.
Anybody else working to pay for performance place? You do back there? Okay, think about the companies we love. What do you do back there, ma'am?
Job recruiter.
Job recruiters, you get paid more if you do a better job and less if you...
Right.
Okay, well, like an example like me, think about the companies that do this, okay? There's a book right here called The Value Profit Chain, but one of the things it says there is that the great companies pay people for great work. And I'm like, holy crap. I mean, that was awesome, right? Because we do 4,000 weddings a year, and I care about you. Anybody here getting married soon? Anybody get married soon? Okay, you specifically. I'd be like, I care about you. This is your wedding. I care. I mean, I really do. I get like emotional about it because I'm excited about it. I'm like, this is her wedding. Let's make it awesome. But there's some dude who views it as a job. And some of you work with people that call in sick. So on the day of a wedding, some dude's like, dude, I'm sick. Which is code for he got hammered. You know what I mean? Dude, I'm sick. So we put in the merit-based pay system, and all of a sudden, half of their paycheck, half of their check is based on her review. So if I go DJ and I do a great job at your wedding, I know I'm going to get paid a lot. Or I can make an 80 grand a year as a DJ. Or I can make like 15 grand as a homeless DJ based on your review. So it just changes the game. It changes the conversation. But before I was always like, is there any way you can do a good job? Will you try harder, Kevin? Yeah, I'll try harder. Kevin, will you try harder? I will. I'll try harder not to get drunk. I'll try harder. But then when you just cut his pay in half, he's like, okay, I'm serious. Okay? So companies that do it, Disney does it. Merit-based pay at Disney. Whoa! Southwest Airlines. There we go. Southwest Airlines does it. Okay? Do you know the flight attendant who's the funniest can earn a big bonus? Yeah. Quick Trip. Quick Trip does it. Who here loves Quick Trip? Who here moved from a city where there was no Quick Trip before? You moved from a city. Isn't it a quality of life issue? Like, I don't want to go to Oklahoma City, and if I do, I'm like, honey, let's bring extra gas. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to stop. You know what I mean? I don't want to go to Shell. I might get shot or get disease in the bathroom. You know what I'm saying, though? You go in, you want to get some gas, and the guy's on his phone, and he's like, it's crazy. You know what I mean? He's like working on his own home tattoo kit or something while he's like, weird. Right? So, Merit-based Quick Trip, though, isn't it different, though, than other places? Southwest Airlines, shouldn't we do what they do? UPS does a merit-based pay system. Sure, shouldn't we? What mechanism will you put in place to make sure that every satisfied customer turns into two more? Some of you, who here does a lot of volunteer work? Who here is the kind of person you do a lot of volunteer work, but you don't necessarily build a big resume? It's something you do for the community, but you don't necessarily like keep it anywhere. So if someone were to ask you what you've done, you couldn't really show them, but you do a lot of stuff. Anybody guilty of that? It's okay. Okay. What happens is that nobody's going to toot your own horn, right? No one's going to toot the horn unless you do it. It's your horn. No one's going to toot it. I'm just telling you. There's this, because I'm a Christian guy, and so I want to be humble, but I also don't want to be like homeless. And there's that balance. Right? I mean, there's, I want to be humble, but not homeless. So here's the deal. Like, if a bride says to me, are you a good DJ? I'm like, yeah, I'm the best ever. Like, by far, by a lot. Here, in fact, are my 14 trophies. Evans came to my office. Here's my wall of trophies. Look at me. You know what I mean? Because I feel I'm good, but I also back it up and I keep track. But the thing is, no one's going to know unless you share your story. And anybody here worked in the media before? Okay? And this is something we'll go through if you guys do the program here with the Forge. But with the media, every day at 5, they have to do a story. Right? Anybody here know somebody who worked for the media? Right? The news reporters? Don't every night they have to do a story, or every day they have to write an article? Right? I mean, could you write an article every day about Tulsa if you had to? I mean, I love Thai pros, and I think we're doing some things to stimulate it, but at a certain point, I'm going to be like, there's a dog in my neighborhood, this is a good story idea. No, go back to the drum room. You know what I mean? I'm looking for something. So what we do is, if I'm in the news industry, I look for press releases, right? And I want you guys to know, true story, in this book right here, Guerrilla Marketing 2.0, I'm going to give you 2 examples of press releases that will freak you out. Here we go. Example number 1. The Beatles land in the United States, right? Anybody see the video of this? I know you don't remember, but you saw the video footage, right? There's Paul, there's Ringo, there's women screaming, right? The plane lands, Beatlemania, right? You see that? Was anybody there when they landed? No. Their publicist said, hombres, or whatever he said. So, guys, there's nobody here. I need you to take back off. Okay, well, So they take off, right? They fly back to where they kind of circle around. He goes to a local high school, says, hold these signs and scream. We'll pay you like $1,000 for you girls to scream and yell. And so they got the whole high school, talked to the local, organized all these kids to hold a sign that said Paul and Ringo and all this stuff. And people screamed, and then they took pictures of it. And they said, Beatlemania lands in the United States. And they sent that to the media, and then it grew, and it grew, and it grew, and then bam! You see what I'm saying? PR. It creates this like hype, this energy, this aura, right? And I'm not saying you have to like fabricate your own Beatlemania, but what I am saying is that you do want to create your own momentum and make sure that if you do something that the media talks about a little bit, because you're going to build your resume. But the thing about performance is you have to know how many customers you have to serve to get to your goals. So if we drew this picture in the middle of what we want our life to look like, we have to know how many customers do I have to serve to be able to afford that. Does that make sense to you? So if I do a wedding, I know we make like $167 profit per wedding if nothing goes wrong and nothing blows up. But if something does blow up, we're making about 160 because we got to budget it in, right? So if I want to achieve my goals, you do the math. You take 4,000 weddings times $160. That's how you know what I mean? You kind of can do your math. That's how you get to your goals. So you have to know your performa. Now, once you know your performa and how much money you make per customer, is it possible you'll turn people down? Is it possible? Is there sometimes you have to say no to things or seem like a good opportunity? You know, about every 7 days I meet somebody who has a multi-level of some kind that I have to say no to. But I know a friend who's made millions in multi-levels. I know a friend who's made millions of dollars. It's not for me, but I know what to turn down because it doesn't fit with my goals. Does that make sense to you guys? I mean, you have to know what to turn down. I talked to a guy the other day who's a doctor, and he says, hey, I'd like to help you. I'd like to team up with you as a client. Like, I want to help him because I know his performance, and I know I can make a lot of money doing it, so it's a good thing. He's one of those preventative DO doctors, you know, where you're supposed to eat right and go to Whole Foods all the time and go to CrossFit and never eat aspartame. You know what I'm talking about? My wife's into this stuff. Where the birds, free-range birds. Who here eats free-range eggs? Like that matters to you? My wife cares about this. Now I eat them too. You know what I'm saying? Organic stuff where they pet the chickens before they kill them. Good chicken. And this is that doctor, and he does a membership-based health care where he charges like $150 a month. You can come as much as you want, and there's no insurance allowed. And I'm like, this is cool, because I've seen it in the East Coast, so he's an ideal client for me. But to say yes to something, then you have to say no to something else, right? So today I had a call from a guy, and I'm like, no, you know, not because I don't care, but doesn't fit in your goals. Does that make sense? But you have to have a performance so you know. So I'm asking you right now, with your goals, how much do you need to make per hour? This is your homework right now, do your own performance. Divide how much you want to make per year, or the number of weeks in the year. Okay, so let's say you want to make $80,000 a year. Cool. How much is that per week? Per day, per hour? Go ahead and figure it out. You can borrow your friend's calculator. You need to know. Because this is huge for me. I'm telling you, this will change the game for you. You are going to get where you go over the next year. Your life, like your capacity to grow, where you go the next year is going to be determined by the people you hang out with and the stuff you put into your head. If you'll take 30 minutes a day studying about multimillionaires and just do what they do, you'll get rich. So every day I wake up, seriously, like 5:30, I drink coffee. I don't want to read it sometimes, you know? So right now, this morning, I was reading about Harvey Mackey, and yesterday I was reading about Sarah Blakely. But I read this stuff, and when I read this stuff for 30 minutes a day, what happens to your head when you start to put that funk in your head? What happens, anyway? Doesn't it start to affect the way you think, like subconsciously? You know what I mean? So like if you watch comedies all the time, you always think of funny stuff. Or if you think of you're around sarcastic people, aren't you always sarcastic? Or if you think about, you know what I mean, it's just weird. I used to like, Evan knows, I used to have double hoop earrings, you know? And I used to hang around like quasi-rapper guys. But if you're thinking about success all the time, you find yourself in the office of like the founder of Quick Trip, which I've done, or the founder of Hobby Lobby, or George Foreman, or because you think about it all the time, right? So you start taking actions. And once you start to take actions all the time, you start to what? Form habits, right? And once you form habits, then people start to form a reputation. They start to say, you have a reputation for being, right? And then once you have a reputation, you can exchange that stuff for compensation, and then that's where it's at. So you want to start thinking about what you're putting in your head, because that will greatly affect the way you operate. Does that make sense to you? So the homework for you guys, I want you to think about this. In the top left, it says, facts of life. We only live once. We all know that. Some of you guys heard reincarnation. That's cool. Maybe you'll come back as a goat or something. But for what we know of, we only live once, right? And time buys money. I'm not talking about having money just for the sake of it. I'm talking about, you make it, if you spend it all if you want, whatever allows you to do what you want to do, okay? But we only live once, and time buys the money. Now, according to the SBA, 40% of all startup businesses fail within the first year. And I know this because they asked me to come speak at the Small Business Administration Office of Advocacy event, and I'm talking and I'm going, this is some depressing stats. Like 40% of them fail right away, and then you have 80% of them fail with the next 5 years. So that's the case. The final fact is that locks are pretty tough to open without the right keys. I've discovered that. But if you know what to do, you just do it, it works. 3 kinds of intelligence. One is your intelligence quotient. Anybody here know what the IQ is? It's your intelligence relative to your age, right? So how good you score on a test relative to your age. So hypothetically, if you score the same on a test when you're 25 as you do when you're 65, you got dumber, I guess. But that's how the IQ works, okay? So IQ is just your intelligence relative to your age, okay? The second here is emotional, the emotional quotient, the emotional intelligence. So how quickly do you rebound emotionally from setbacks? So I'm just giving you real stuff. I grew up poor. My son was born blind. I've had one partner that's probably going to jail for doing some bad stuff. Who here's had a bad partner? Anybody have a bad partner? Yeah. I've probably fired 3 people that were friends of mine for stealing from me, I've had my office broken into. We've dealt with everything short of fires. We've dealt with, there's all sorts of stuff. You've dealt with an economy that sucks, the recession, all that stuff. You dealt with that. But the emotional quotient is your intelligence, but how quickly can you emotionally rebound? That's the second area you want to look at. And the third is your attitude. Can you bring that positive attitude every day that says, how can I do it? How can I be the next Sarah Blakely? Because you guys can do it. This is something you can do. You can do it. You don't have to be like someone you're reading about. You don't have to read about these other people. You can do it. You can do it.